Thank you. Yeah, I'm here to talk about Influx Data's Telegraf, a data collection agent. So what is Telegraf? Yeah, Telegraf is a plugin-based open source agent that collects, processes, aggregates and writes metrics, logs and other arbitrary data traces, something like this. And there are a lot of other data collection agents, so why should you use Telegraf? Well, Telegraf allows to collect from a really wide field of devices, machines, applications, services, and APIs. We do have more than 200 input plugins. I think with the next release we hit the 260 mark. So, for example, in the field of system and network monitoring, this is only an excerpt. You have the usual operating system metrics, CPU usage, memory, stuff like this. But you also do have a lot of network protocols that we support, that a lot of switches and other applications provide. Virtualization solutions, container solutions, network file systems, stuff like this, but also your power supply. Besides from this rather hardware tailored things, there's more services, NTP, your web servers, all kinds of databases. You can connect the speed or monitor the speed of your internet connection, your certificates, all kind of different services that you might have in your environment. But we also do monitor industrial devices. So if you work in a factory, you might have heard one of those protocols, OPC UA or Modbus, Siemens, Simatic, stuff like this. So we not only cover basically the IT infrastructure, but we also cover the industrial side, IoT side. And furthermore, we can interoperate with a lot of different other projects. There are a lot of message brokers we support, Kafka, MQTT, stuff like this. We can pass a lot of protocols. This is only a small fraction of what we support. JSON, CSV, protocol buffers, stuff like this. We can grab logs. We can also basically collect open telemetry data or Prometheus open metric stuff. But also like more trivial things like files or SQL statements we can issue and then collect the returned data. Of course, also HTTP endpoints. So if you have a REST API, chances are high that we got you covered. Then you do have the data, but what do you do with the data? Often you need to transform them in some way. You want to aggregate some high frequency data, or you want to extract a certain portion of a string, for example. We have more than 50 processors and aggregator plugins to do this. Statistical stuff, quantiles, but also min-max, stuff like this, regular expressions, parsing, but also annotations from other data sources, like you get a metric from a certain device and you want to add more information to this device as tags. And we do support Starlark scripting, which is a kind of a Python-like language running in the sandbox without access to network and the file system to be safe on this side. And you also want to output the metrics. And even though Telegraf is made by InfluxDB, it's not tailored to InfluxDB. We support more than 50 output plugins. Again, wide range of message brokers. Monitoring platforms like Sensu, Zabbix, or Datadog, Grafana Loki. A lot of different database types. Of course, InfluxDB as a central instance, but there's more, Postgres and stuff like this. But we can also send data to different cloud providers like Amazon, Google, or Azure. And again, we can act as a Prometheus endpoint that can be scraped by Prometheus. And we can also output open telemetry metrics and traces and logs. And additionally, you don't need to provide your credentials that you need for accessing, for example, remote services in the config file. we do support so-called secret store plugins, which keep your secrets, secret. The operating system stores Linux kernel keyring or Windows Credential Manager, to name the two. Encrypted files or auth services like Auth0 or Keycloak, others that support this standard. System decredentials is a nice thing to start up Telegraf in an unattended fashion with the secrets being basically encrypted on disk. And also Docker secrets. If you need more, just open a feature request. We're happy to add stuff. Now, how can you benefit? Telegraf is easy to use. It's fault tolerant because it buffers the metrics on the output side. And it has a huge community which also supports a lot of basically code and help. And because talk is cheap and I feel brave today, I will give a short demo what could possibly go wrong. Let's see if this works out. Okay, I spin up two containers. One is an InfluxDB v2 container, created a token. I also spun up a Grafana container. What else should it be? Also with the token, come back to this later. So for now, I'm going to close this. And I downloaded the Telegraf binary also already from the web page, because you never know with Wi-Fi. So what we do is we extract and then you get basically this output. If you install Telegraf, basically you are kind of familiar with the directory structure. To not type too much, I'm going to like this. Okay, so I create basically just a link. So in the current directory, I don't need to type always the path. And then we create a config. We need an agent section, which tells the agent what to do. And we want to scrape stuff in a 1 second interval. Oh, come on. And I know that you enjoyed me typing. And we want to output the data in a 1 second interval. And for demo, I add an input, which is a CPU. I just want to basically have the total CPU usage. Save the stuff, exit, and we hopefully can run Telegraf as a test. So we run Telegraf, and what you see is a metric in influx line protocol. You don't need to read this, but you see we do get a metric, so the input works, obviously. Now, if I want to start this, Telegraf will tell me that it didn't find any output, so it doesn't make sense to run it like this. So let's add a small output. I will add a file output, and it will write to standard out, which is the console. And once we start it, you will see that the metrics are coming with a 1 second. So, nice. We have our first instance running. Just because this is a bit too easy, I want to set up InfluxDB output. And because I don't like to type a lot, I will tell Telegraf to create a configuration. We will filter out the outputs only, and we will only filter out an InfluxDB version 2 output, and I will add it to the config. And because now I need to get the token. I will put in the token here. And fill in the stuff. Start. And if we now go to the Data Explorer, and I maybe minimize this a bit, we get a demo bucket that I specified. We get a CPU, and let's say we have the usage user. I don't want to filter basically. And we have our nice graph. Okay, let's save this to a dashboard. Get a refresh. Okay, so we get our data. Now, this was easy, but if you imagine you add a lot of inputs, you add a lot of outputs, stuff might get complicated. So you can split your configurations. And I will do so. So I will leave a central configuration file with only the agent section, because that's kind of the general settings. I will, and now I deleted the wrong file. What happened? Oh no. File. Here I will only keep the input. And then only keep the output. Okay, and because this is teachers, so every time to restart Telegraf, I will now give the additional Telegraf directory that I just created, and I tell Telegraf to watch the directory for changes and see what it does. So we should again have the like CPU still running, everything fine. But now open another shell. It's also a bit bigger. And then I just add the memory. And now if I go back to the Explorer, we see that the memory was automatically added. And I need to minimize this. Let's see, we take the total one is probably lame to use one. We just want to have a 1 second interval at the cell. We added just another input without restarting Telegraf, everything fine. So we see the new data. And data is coming in. And because I want to show that a Telegraf can cope with outages of the network, I need to add another output. And I prepared a Grafana output. And this will just send basically data to the live metrics endpoint of Grafana. So you can send data basically directly to the Grafana instance. And if I now copy this file to the directory, I should see in the live measurements. We get the data, and probably I mistyped something. The screen is too small. I forgot to input, also add the input, sorry. So I add another input, which basically gives a metric or provides metrics about what Telegraf, the buffer pressure of Telegraf, and also some internal metrics that Telegraf collects about its plugins. And because I filtered in the output, so I only filtered for the writes that come from the InfluxDB v2 plugin, and I should see the data, hopefully. Yes. Here we go. And just take the buffer size and the errors. And what you can see, like it buffers a few metrics from time to time, depending on how many there are, but then writes it out, so the counter drops back to 0. But now I will pause InfluxDB, basically simulating an outage of the InfluxDB server or network segment. And what you see is that the internal buffer is filled, like we're now at 150 metrics and so on and so forth. And in basically your container is stopped here, so nothing happens. But if I now unpause container again, you see that the number of metrics basically drops down to 0. And if you go back, you don't see any loss of data because they all were kept by Telegraf and sent as soon as the output comes back. Okay, then that's the short demo I wanted to give. So I would say Telegraf has a good time to awesome, which is because you don't need to code to collect any metrics. You don't need to code to write any metrics. And you don't basically need to code for process the metrics and aggregate them. There is a low-code general purpose alternative for the Starlux script. If you have very different processing styles or processing needs, Telegraf comes as a single statically linked binary without any dependencies, so you can use it on any distribution you want. Also is available for Windows, Linux, Mac, FreeBSD, and a few others. Telegraf is configured with human-readable TOML files, and as I said, available for many platforms, many different CPU architectures. So you probably can run it on your environment. Of course, no talk without an outlook. What's next in Telegraf land? We will take on-disk buffering out of the experimental stage beginning of December. So with the release you should be able to use it. It's already available now. We marked it as experimental to get some experience and some complaints about it. So far, so good. Nothing too big happened. If you need this, go for the current release. We were one of the first collectors that supported open telemetry profiling support. So PR is in since, I don't know, 3 months or so. We support structured logging. We work on rate limiting for outputs because currently we write as fast as we can, which is often a problem because you can easily overload your data sync if a lot of telegraphs are blocked and come back. And we plan to add some additional internal statistics, like for plugins, like how many metrics gathered, how much data was received in bytes, stuff like this that might help you to find out why a certain plugin has some issues or is blocked. And some other stuff that is not yet decided if it will be in the next version. That's it from my side. If you have any question, please join us on Slack. We will be there, so all developers will be there, so you have a direct connection to us. There's no support in between. Yeah, thank you for your attention.
And obviously, if you have some questions immediately, you may ask them now. I will go around with the catch box. Or not, with the microphone at the very back.
Could you explain what you mean with profiling support? Is it the Telegraf could transfer profiling data, or what does this mean in detail?
You need a third-party basically tool that creates the open telemetry profiles. So Telegraf doesn't do it itself, but we can basically collect or receive the profiles and create metrics from it. So
thank you for the demo. Just a very quick question to get better understanding. You did not use the InfluxDB data source plugin, for example, inside Grafana, but instead you use the live streaming method. What is the basic difference if someone wants to use that instead of this live method?
yeah, so if you want to basically access the InfluxDB from Grafana, you need to add a data source in Grafana. That's easily possible, even in parallel. But for the demo, I did this because when I take down the InfluxDB container, also Grafana will receive no metrics anymore. So it's for demo purposes. And if you really need low latency things, that might also be for you. But so it's just a possibility that you have in Grafana and that I use here.
Looks like those are all questions. Then give it up once more for Sven.